Titleist is the #1 ball in golf. Yes, being #1 is a number, and more players trust the Pro V1 or Pro V1X than all other golf balls combined. But being #1 is more than a number. It's a mindset. It's a relentless mission to design and manufacture the best performing golf balls in the game, so you can chase whatever your #1 is. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf.
I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Cameron Smith.
This is the one that I've always wanted to win since I was a little kid. So it just feels pretty amazing to be able to get it done today.
It's amazing that it's my destiny to be the first Aussie to win. Just incredible.
Hello and welcome to the special US Open preview episode of Playing from the Tips, Golf Australia Magazine's tipping and preview podcast where you get your weekly good oil from our team of so-called experts. That's right, as it seems every other week at the moment. It is again major championship time, and it is again myself, Jimmy Emanuel, as the host of this show, covering discussion, discourse, and delusional tips. An expert in all three things is Rod Morrie, who we welcome back off the bench, well-rested, ready, and rambunctious.
Picked the field last week and wasn't here for it to be publicly acknowledged, which is a shame. I picked Linnea Strom. There was never any chance that she wasn't going to win. Lynn Grant was a special. It was just really disappointing for me. What a shame.
Do we add them into the spreadsheet?
Well, I'd like you to, but I suspect you're going to.
I'll take it to the commission. Next, when Adrian Logue plays golf in a team, one man does all the work and Logue takes all the credit. So instead of just having Logue doing that on the podcast, we've just unmasked his partner who does it all. Of course, Corn Ferry Tour winner, commentator, junior tour creator. What can't he do? Ewan Porter, welcome.
That's an excellent intro, Jimmy, and I very much appreciate it. And Logue, thank you for this opportunity. Pull your socks up next time we have a gala day.
When he says the word Logue, his shoulders just sag a bit.
Yeah,
you can see the weight, the burden that is obviously there. Before we go, you're going to do some stuff from last week?
I am going to do some stuff from last week. So before we do go full bore into Pinehurst No.2, some highlights, lowlights from last week. What did we see?
Well, Cassie Porter winning on the Epsom Tour was fantastic.
A graduate of the Next Gen Amateur Tour.
Absolutely.
There you go.
And a great ambassador, Ewan. Cassie Porter has always been and will continue to be a great ambassador for the game and for Australia.
Yeah, lovely girl. She won a lot as a junior golfer, continued to win as an amateur. The transition to pro, she's played okay, but now that she's got that first win under the belt, I think sky's the limit now.
Yeah. Had Steph Nahr caddying for her as well. And Steph's in that one of those mentor roles with Golf Australia, and I think Steph Nahr does a fantastic job of it. Particularly, she's done a lot of work with Cassie, who's also spent a lot of time at the Golf Australia house with the Smiths, Sarah Jane and Dwayne. I think that was a highlight. I think Lynn Grant, that was unbelievable.
Extraordinary.
Sebastian Soderberg, 11-shot lead.
Well, yeah. How tough is it, Ewan? We look and go, choked, hopeless, threw it away. How tough actually is it to lead a golf tournament as a professional, particularly a big lead? It's sometimes almost harder, isn't
it? Yeah. I mean, I was lucky. I only had a big lead once and thankfully went on with it. But, really you can only really embarrass yourself in that position, can't you? And I mean, 11 shots ahead. Who would have thunk it? I mean, that's how do you blow that 11-shot lead? And some of the putts he missed coming in, I mean, Logue couldn't have missed them.
That is the harshest burn of all. There's been some sad things about Sebastian Soderberg, but that is just class. Kelsey Bennett too, by the way. She had a disappointing final, but led into the final round.
Correct.
Another player who's coming along nicely.
Exactly. She and Cassie have sort of come up at the same time, and it sort of looked like Kelsey was going to be the one to get a little jump in front, and then Cassie ends up doing it. But yeah, she played very well. Lynn Grant winning was pretty special again.
What a golf game, what a golf swing. She's an extremely impressive performer. Just fantastic, really.
And then you add in Scottie Scheffler, just winning for fun. Why not?
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. Just
business as usual.
Yeah,
move along.
Tee it up, win again. And then we will cover it in the Australians at the US Open, but Adam Scott will play his 92nd straight major championship. So very impressive. Before we do leave last week, even without you, Rod, and your mythical tips that we are led to believe.
I picked the lotto numbers too, but forgot to put my ticket in. Yeah, terrible week for me.
We managed 5 top 10s. Hardest luck story, Michael Green, who did have Sebastian Soderberg. And Logue derided and mocked him for tipping Soderberg and his series. And he's just watched that unfold. That takes us to 77 top 10s for the year, 13 wins. Rod, as you would know, that is the best numbers for a tipping podcast hosted in Sydney, Australia, with 3 people in it each week.
In Studio 2.
In Studio 2 of Sydney Podcast Studios. Right. Yep. On to this week, and it is the 124th US Open, which returns for the first time since 2014 to Pinehurst No.2, where Martin Keimer putted from everywhere just about but the tee to win that year. Wyndham Clark is the defending champion. Rod, you're going to talk to us a bit about the golf course.
Well, if you know anything about golf, or you're interested in golf, you'll have heard of Pinehurst. Carolina, that sandy area, it really is the cradle of American golf, where it really sort of started. And Pinehurst is at the forefront. It's got a really interesting history. It was originally, people would have heard of the Tufts Archive at the USGA. James Tufts built Pinehurst, but not as a golf resort originally. It was a well-being resort for people from the northeast to go in the winter times, and they thought it was good for respiratory. So he had a couple of guests about 3 years after it opened, a couple of guests out in the local dairy paddocks hitting golf balls. The local farmers complained. They weren't happy about it. So he said, maybe we'll build one of these golfy things on the property. And Pinehurst was born. That was Pinehurst No.1, nine holes, sand greens. Pinehurst No.2, Donald Ross design. You'll hear this ad nauseum this week about Donald Ross, obviously famous golf course architect and golf professional. This was his kind of baby. He built Pinehurst No.2 and tweaked it. He lived on site for about 45 years at Pinehurst and never stopped tweaking the course at Pinehurst No.2. It's been one of America's great golf courses for a long time. It had a period, 60s, 70s, into the 90s. People might remember the 99 US Open, Payne Stewart, and also 2005. It was a very different look to what we see now, much more traditional US Open look. Narrow fairways, thick rough, off into trees, which was never what Pinehurst used to look like. Restored by Corin Crenshaw in sort of 2009-10, hosted the US Open in 2014. Totally different looking golf course then. 10 years on, that's really settled. The place just looks amazing. Have you played at Pinehurst? You and I would imagine you've been there at least.
Yeah, no, I haven't played it, but I called the 2019 US Amateur there that Andy Ogletree won. Yep. Amazing venue. That was at No.2 and No.4. No.4 was special as well. I don't know how many there are, 8, 9, 10, not sure. But
9 hole courses.
Yeah, 2 and 4 are fantastic. I hadn't seen Pinehurst pre-restoration, but probably as close to Sandbelt golf as you get in the United States. I always say Pine Valley's got a Sandbelt feel to it, but the turf there is very soft, unlike Pinehurst. Pinehurst is firm. And I was actually just reading before we jumped on here how Wyndham Clark saying the greens are already a little bit borderline. So if they're quick, plays hard. I saw footage of Tiger playing out of the junk this morning. I think we're in for a fun week.
It is.
Weather's going to be as well hot and steamy all week.
Yeah. Speaking of Tiger, that's probably good for him. Everyone will talk, you'll hear this ad nauseum this week too, this turtleback green idea. The greens are very sort of upturned saucer-like, so they're quite large, except that they're very small where you can actually hit them and hold. So you're going to see lots and lots and lots of balls running off greens, and a bit like the Sandbelt, I think, as you say, Ewan, running away. For amateurs, a place like Pinehurst or us recreational golf, it's fantastic. Grab the putter, you can hit it from 40 feet off the green and it goes. Horror stuff for pros because you've got all the options in the world, and now it's not just about how good you are with your hands, it's how good you are with your mind, and that'll really test and separate the field. There have been great US Opens here in the past, partly for that reason. But yeah, it'll somewhat like the Sandbelt, and I think that the pros will be out of their comfort zone for the most part, and that will make for really entertaining. You'll see some funky stuff. You'll have some players complaining about this is unfair or that's unfair. I missed by a foot and I ended up 40 yards away. It's like, well, hey, that's golf at Pinehurst. So
always good winners at Pinehurst.
I think so, yeah. It does identify. It's hard to do in this day and age, Ewan, isn't it, is to identify the best in some ways because physically the golfers are all so close because of the equipment. It's so hard to separate yourself as a driver or an iron player or whatever. But this will really test every part of the bag, particularly the mind and emotions. You've got to have your emotions under check. As you know, Ewan, as a pro, you make a bogey, you think you've lost 2 shots to the field. You've got to turn that off at a US Open. Making a bogey is just not the disaster that it normally is. So totally different mindset.
Well, I do love the fact that you've got so many options from tee right through to green, not just off the tee, but really within 50 yards, I think is probably going to be the most exciting part of this week. And John Daly in 05 proved there's another option. You can hit the ball whilst it's moving as it's rolling off the slope. But you made a point there, Jimmy, about it identifying good winners, which it has. 99, Payne Stewart. 2005, Michael Campbell was a world beater and pipped Tiger Woods to the post. Obviously, Keimer, I think, was around world number 1. He'd won the Players' Championship in 2014. But on the flip side, in 05, Jason Gore was in the final group as a qualifier in the final round. In 2014, Eric Compton finished second. In 1999, you had Olin Brown right there in contention. So, yes, it identifies the best players, but I wouldn't be surprised this week to see, I'm not going to say a nobody, but a lesser-known play right there in contention at the end as well.
Yep, absolutely.
It's a democratic sort of golf course, or it's a democratic type of golf. If you're playing well and hitting your spots, you can score well. Jeff Ogilvy said something really interesting. That the Fried Egg did a fabulous 2-part video with Bill Corr and Jeff Ogilvy talking about the course. And what I really loved was Ogilvy said, because of the waste areas rather than just the thick rough bordering the fairways, when you miss the fairway off the tee, normally at the US Open, you walk off the tee knowing you're dead. This is a chip out. Where am I going to chip to? He said, with Pinehurst, you're not sure. You kind of come up over the top of the hill and you're looking, and maybe I've got a line, maybe I've got a chance here, and that really changes everything. It's much more links-like what you see in sort of Great Britain when we see the Open go to those great links courses. So the course will be one of the stars of the show this week, and rightfully so. I was super impressed with Lancaster Country Club a couple of weeks ago for the Women's US Open. That was just a fantastic course. The aesthetic was dramatic, and Pinehurst it's not as dramatic as Lancaster in that way, but it's got a fabulous look, and probably more the look down a rabbit hole that golf should be going for.
Yeah, absolutely.
In as much as if you don't play golf and you turn on the US Open, or if you turn on the Masters, you see Augusta, it doesn't look right in a lot of ways. It's just too green. It's too much. Pinehurst sits beautifully in its landscape. It's a good ad for the game, but it's going to be a fantastically intriguing week with the course.
Yeah, New Zealand.
Jimmy, I know you want to get onto the next question, and my apologies, but it would have been around Pinehurst a decade ago when certainly the perception of the US Open seemed to shift from even par is a great winning score and we just want the US Open as a spectator to be super hard, to it sort of shifted a little bit. Oh, well, we don't want to see thick rough, and we really want to, we want to see the best players come to the fore, and maybe under par is an okay winning score. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when Cabrera won Oakmont. I think he finished +6 for the tournament.
Yep.
Hale Irwin won at Wingfoot one year about +7. I'd love to see some carnage. I want to see it play really, really hard.
It might do if the wind blows. If the wind blows and it gets firm and fast, you might see that. But you're right, there was a shift in perception. That was really driven by Mike Davis, who was sort of the course setup man at the time. And he did some really weird money things. What I think, Ewan, what the US Open has become is much more like the Open. It's a much more multi-dimensional test. Those old US Opens we remember from the 80s and 90s, in some ways it wouldn't have mattered which course you played it at because they set it up basically the same. Narrow fairways, thick rough, and it's one-dimensional. And Ogilvy makes this point on the video. Once you've got the rough to a certain height, 12 handicap Tour Pro, same option. Take a wedge, take a swing, hack it. There's not much you can do to show that you've got the skills. It's a form of golf. I know it's the form that Brandel Chambly prefers for the US Open. I much prefer this kind of golf. I think it's more interesting to watch. The scores might be lower, but I feel like the examination and what you see the players go through is more interesting. There's much less, I know what's in front of me now. There's much more 3 clubs out around the green and the caddy saying you can do this, this or this feels to me much more interesting than, you're in the rough, here's your 60-degree wedge.
Watching Keimer in 2014 where he putted from everywhere, where that was, like Ewan said, it was the height of his game. I think he might have been world number 1, if not 2, but clearly had the horrors with a wedge around the green. And he putted it so well, but it was on such a fine line every time. He was taking it across ridge lines and it could fall off on the wrong side and he could be making triple so easily, It's fascinating to watch.
So I guess the question, the broader question about that is, do we want to see what's the most interesting form of golf to watch? To play, I think everybody would prefer to play Pinehurst as it looks now rather than with the narrow fairways and thick rough. But what's more interesting to watch? I favour this. What's the case for narrow fairways, thick rough and +7 winning in terms of interest, Ewan? Is it just cruelty because you don't have to do it?
Yeah, look, I don't, nobody had a problem. Nobody had an issue with it in the 80s and 90s, and I think it was good to see. But regardless of whether it's that or the multi-dimensional test, which I think is probably better for an elite golfer, each major should have its own identity. The US Open's identity is the toughest examination, and like I said, let's see it play hard. Let's sort out the men from the boys.
They could do that with pin positions here if they wanted to. They could make it borderline unplayable if they wanted to. There are places where you could put pins where blokes would be putting across the green, the world's best players. So we might see some sort of combination. It depends what sort of mood the course set up, man.
Correct.
If he wakes up and chooses violence, it could be a blood sport. Get the popcorn out. We'll see what happens.
Speaking of sorting out the men from the boys, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion around the players to watch. Given you're just back from a stint calling over in the US ports and I think a major as well, who do you sort of see as the players that stand out, probably beyond Scottie Scheffler, that is everyone's obvious one?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's for very good reason that you're going to identify a Scheffler or a Schauffele as the top players. But the two players that I would really like to keep an eye on this week who have been playing some fantastic golf are a couple of foreigners. Dean Burmester won back-to-back on the DP World Tour end of last year, has been playing some fantastic golf on Live this year. He's one. And the other man who's been in contention the last two events, Victor Perez, the Frenchman, was right there at the Canadian Open. Week before that at Charles Schwab was top 15. I see those two, being there. I'd like to see how Bob McIntyre backs up as well after a week partying at home in Scotland. But look, I think, like I said at the beginning, I do believe one of the top names will win it, but I also believe you'll see two or three players certainly much less heralded right there, whether it's right to the death or certainly until Sunday, teeing it up in the final round. I think you're going to see those players thereabouts as well.
Beautiful golf swing, Perez. That's a great call. Beautiful golf swing. Magnificent to look.
She started wearing a glove a year ago.
Scotland's very own.
Yeah, Scotland's own. That's right.
Yeah, Scotland's own Victor Perez. Yeah.
Dundee.
Yeah, that's right.
Anybody who moves to Scotland because of their golf, that's just outstanding, isn't it?
It is exactly as Port's just painted. It is set up really well for a lot of top players firing at the right time, a lot of people who are sort of on the periphery that might play well on a golf course that just welcomes that sort of stuff. I think it's, obviously Scheffler's going to be fascinating to watch. Rory's in good form. It's all kind of churning into that direction. There's
PIF meeting's done.
The PIF meeting's done last week, yeah. So there's all that in the rear view for a little while. We got a really good US Open last year at times with all of those sort of key players. So I think from the players' perspective, we're really well set up. And then you got Tiger.
Yeah, they're always an interesting story. They're top players for a reason, aren't they? You don't fluke your way to world number one, do you, Ewan? There's a reason you're there, and the reason tends to be what Peter Senior said to me years ago, which I've never forgotten. It's not about your good golf, and we see this every week, first round, second round, third round. There'll be a pro who'll shoot 61, 62, 63, 64, and they can all do that. It's the guys who can turn 75 into 72 or 71, which is what Tiger did for 25 years nonstop.
Correct.
They're the players to watch. And that's Scheffler. You look at his stats, he's down the rankings in the strokes gained putting area, but he's winning because that's what good players do. They get it in the hole in the least number of shots, and that's what I think you'll see this week.
Yep.
And that's why they're the top players, particularly when it's a big event.
We're going to get everyone's winning tip very shortly, but you did just mention a name that I forgot off the top, Peter Senior. He was in the King's Birthday Honours list yesterday. Yeah. So congratulations to Pete, one of the great people in Australia.
Without doubt. And what a competitor.
One on the Aussie Tour, 5 different decades.
Yeah. Triple crown in his 50s, Australian Open, Australian PGA and the Australian Masters in his 50s, let alone what he'd done before.
Yeah,
phenomenal. Won't be done again. I'll go as far as saying won't be done again.
You haven't turned 50 yet, Ports. You've still got time.
Well, there's no Masters, so it can't be done again.
All right, hypothetically, the Masters comes back. What's got more of a chance of being broken, that record or Tiger's 142 straight cuts? You got to pick one.
They're both so unlikely.
Neither. I get a tour win is probably more likely than those two.
Now we really are in the realm of fantasy. You're lucky to have a media badge.
Yeah, that's
to
right.
Win.
All right, let's get some winners. Ports, to you. Who do you think's going to win the US Open?
Okay, well, I never mentioned his name, but it's someone who's been an afterthought the last 12 months, really, in majors, which is horrifying given his record in recent times. I'm going with Brooks Koepka.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. A golf course, everything about it.
I think he finished top 10 here in 2014. I had a quick look at the record. I think Koepka. I think so. He was around. It wasn't like right near the pointy end, but he was. He's in the top end of the leaderboard. Well, another one people don't talk about much, and probably understandably so. I'm going to go with Matt Fitzpatrick because I think the aesthetic of this course, the look of this course, the way this course will play. Distance isn't going to be the most important thing. You've got to find the fairways because you can get those dodgy lies off there and around the greens. I don't know. I just got a feeling about Matt Fitzpatrick this week. So go Matt.
Go Matt. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Oh, and Scheffler, of course.
I'm gonna take the obvious one because someone has to, because we keep missing getting winning tips by tipping Scottie Scheffler because we all talk about he'll probably just win and no one takes him. So I'm just going to do the right thing by the group and jump onto Scottie Scheffler.
Sorry, Scotty.
Yeah,
that's it for you,
Scotty. That's the end of that run.
Your run just came to an end officially.
Me and the Louisville police are going to bring down Scottie Scheffler. That's the only two people who can. We're going to get another tip very shortly, and it's going to be an outsider. And probably this is the time you talk about Tiger. I think this is probably, in terms of his showing up and playing these majors, and it's luck of the draw how he wakes up each morning. But with warm weather, flat golf course, this is probably our chance to get as good a look as we're going to get a Tiger in a while. The Open as well, of course.
Yeah.
Swing looks great too.
Yeah.
The swing looks fabulous.
It does. It kind of always only hits those sort of amazing shots. But Ewan, is it possible to play 6 elite events a year and expect to be able to contend and maybe beat these guys? We know how special Tiger is. You would never bet against him.
Yeah.
But my goodness, that's a tall.
No, I think a 30-year-old Tiger Woods.
Yes.
You'd be skeptical, but he could do it. Not now. Not at 48, and given what he's been through physically and emotionally and everything else. No, I don't think so. I think he's proven that he can certainly make cuts, be top 20 after a couple of rounds. Anything further than that, gosh, I really would love him to prove me wrong, but I don't think so.
If they really did start on the back 9 Sunday, just cancel the first 3.5 days, you'd give him a shot. Over 9 holes, no problem at all.
Absolutely.
But 4 days.
It's just watching all of the major starts now. It's just you waiting for the day where he has the bad one, where the body's not going and there's a couple of bad shots and it gets away from him pretty
morning
quickly.
Tea time, it's a bit cool. The leg's not.
Exactly.
When he's walking well, he looks fantastic. But when he starts to limp, you can really see the discomfort. Though, look, on the flip side, he's obviously going to enjoy the week. He's had Charlie out there with him.
Yep.
Almost coaching by the look of it. He's been standing behind him, watching the chip shots, and it's just been quite amazing. So he'll be enjoying that aspect of it, no doubt. So a happy Tiger, who knows? But you couldn't.
No.
I didn't imagine there would ever be a day where you'd say, outsiders, Tiger Woods.
Yeah. Exactly.
Most of my adult life, that has just not been something that anyone could say.
Scheffler is, if you look at the odds and everything, and this week is $4, he's the first one ever to enter into that Tiger country where you used to look at Tiger before a major, and now you got to scroll a fair way down to find T. Woods.
There was a tournament one week, years ago, where the field was paying 8-1 and Tiger was 5-1.
Yeah.
It's like
that's right.
You could get better odds on the. It was just extraordinary.
Yeah. So. Speaking of outsiders, let's all pick one. Rod, you can lead us off.
That great Canadian-American Corey Connors.
Yes.
Strikes it fabulously. It'll be all about the greens, but I think with the way the course will be set up, you're really going to have to be really good from tee to green, and it's going to be a bit of a level of the greens because the greens they're not easy to putt. There'll be a lot of 2-putting this week, a lot of needing to make 2 putts, and in that kind of tournament, a guy like Corey Connors can sort of stand out. So I would expect a good week from him.
Nice. Ports, an outsider.
Dean Burmester played well at the PGA, different golf course, but it's a major. Plays well all around the world. Look out for him.
Nice. I'm going with Thomas Dietrich.
Nice work.
Who is always going to be near it, is such a good player and just cannot win.
Doesn't seem to get over the line, does
but strikes me as the kind who's going to just then win something huge.
Huge.
Yeah, he's going to get his moment.
Andy North won 3 times in his career, two of them US Open.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Thomas Dietrich has everything about that. I remember watching watching him win the World Cup with Thomas Peters at Metro in 2018 and being like, all right, well, this guy's going to win everything.
Yeah.
And just hasn't got it done.
Your golf ball is the most technologically advanced, or it's not. Your golf ball is either the most consistent, or it's not. It's the most trusted, or it's not. The fact is, it's either Titleist, the best performing golf ball in the world, or it's not. Prove it for yourself. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. What will you play?
We are going to take a look at an Aussie contingent that looked a little bit light on until about a week ago. Final qualifying has done us a lot of favours. So Jason Scrivener advanced into the tournament at Walton Heath, which was where Michael Campbell qualified in 2005 and went on to win.
The omen bet.
Yeah, well, outstanding. Cam Davis appeared to crush Adam Scott and Australia's hopes of continuing the streak with a win in extra holes in Ohio. But Scott is going to get in, or has officially gotten in. I got the email from the USGA overnight.
Who breathed the biggest sigh of relief when that happened? Cam Davis or Adam Scott?
Cam Davis had no idea what he was beating out when he beat Adam Scott in the playoff, and then got told afterwards and went, "Oh, really?" Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
So Adam was 61st at the month ago mark, and then 61st today. But with Grayson Murray, they've taken him out. Adam goes in, and he was going to get a spot as an alternate anyway. So those three join Jason Day, Cam Smith, and Minwoo Lee in the field. So as I mentioned at the top, Adam's 92nd straight major. So he started at the 2001 U.S. Open, I believe. And he's chasing to become only the second person to play 100 consecutive majors.
Yeah.
Jack Nicklaus played 146.
Amazing, isn't it?
So he'll go very close. Evan Priest pointed out the other day that he's into the Open, guaranteed, because of his Australian Open finish. He's obviously into the Masters, so the next year's PGA is when it will bubble up again. So he's got a bit of stress-free for a while. But he also actually, in 2005, he was tied for 28th at Pinehurst. In 2014, he was tied for 9th. And the kind of sandbelt style golf that we mentioned suits Adam. Cam Smith is obviously the one most would point to of the Aussies. He unfortunately closed with an 80 at Live Golf Houston last week.
Out of his system then.
Finished tied 48th. I think that was, a bit of a blip on the radar. Again, it's a style of golf that should suit him. He can do what he can at the majors. He's already shown a little bit this year. I think he can forgive last week and sort of just worry about this week. Small sample size for Minwoo Lee at the US Open, but a pretty good one. T5 last year, T27 the year before.
Loves a big event.
Loves a big event. Pinehurst No.2 is so far up Minwoo's alley, it's not even funny. So that his game's been a bit here or there, but again, big event, exactly as you say, Rod. Cam Davis showed exactly what he's capable of at final qualifying.
They're two more polar opposite players than Cam Davis and Minwoo Lee, or more polar opposite personalities?
Nope.
Both extraordinarily good
yeah.
players in their own right, but totally different.
I think it's the third men's major in a row we're going to say Cam Davis has a game that's perfectly fit for this golf course. We spoke about Sandbelt style. He went and won that Sandbelt Invitational 2 years ago where he just put
off the deck.
Put the driver off the deck, heard around the world. Put on just a clinic. Has a game that is so perfect for this sort of golf. He's just got to work out how to bring it at the right time. He didn't finish that well at Memorial last week, but big long week, 36 holes plus extra holes. You forgive that. Same venue of Muirfield Village continues to perplex Jason Day, despite the fact he's a member there. So again, ignore last week. He's kind of trending in the right direction. Second twice at this event, not at this venue, but second twice at the US Open. T4 back in 2014.
Okay.
So lots of good stuff for Jason. And then it's been a bit of a grind for Jason Scrivener of late. I actually spoke to him on Friday night. Very happy to be going back to a major. Has had a family quickly. He's learning about travelling. Is almost our only guy playing every week on the DP World Tour, getting used to that. Also getting used to being the tour dad to Hayden Barron and all those sort of guys. He great ball striker. Kind of guy who could surprise and play pretty well.
Hard worker.
Yeah.
Journeyman's often seen as a sort of a negative thing, but I don't think it is. A guy who can survive and make a living playing golf for 10, 15, 20. I often think this about Mike Clayton is, you made a living playing golf for 20-something years. We don't appreciate just how hard that is and how good you have to be.
I think you, Rod, and I were the only two journos who covered his 2017 New South Wales Open.
Yeah,
Oh, 17,
17, yeah.
He beat Lucas at the end.
Beat Lucas Herbert, yeah. That was us, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Before we go, Ewan, what does that 80 tell us about Cam Smith? Anything at all? You've played at the top level. Every now and then you're bound to have a bad one, but 80, anything with an 8 in it for a touring professional has got to be cause for pause, does it not?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I don't really think so with Cam. No, I mean, I watched him at the PGA Championship at RQ, and it's by far and away the worst golf I've ever seen him play. Missed the cut by a mile. Came back the following week, finished top 20, 25 at Aussie Open, and actually hit the ball okay. I don't think it'll really bother him too much. I wouldn't really put a question mark there.
His short game on this golf course will be something to watch. We should see some pretty special stuff from him, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I think not being the straightest driver going around, as you mentioned earlier, you could get lucky around Pinehurst, and that could work in his favour too.
Yeah, I think with Cam, the driver is the struggle point.
Yeah.
But it seems when he gets to a major, and I think Pinehurst is this exact thing where his brain has to switch on with the options and where he's going to go and all that sort of stuff. It kind of goes away a little bit more. It's
Bubba Watson, I used to say about Bubba Watson. The hardest shot for Bubba Watson was a straightforward 9-iron from the middle of the fairway, because what have I got to do with it? I've got nothing to do with it, so he just doesn't engage with the shot properly and hits something bland and so.
Liv plays a lot of events at a lot of pretty similar style golf courses that aren't the places that Cam's ever played his best golf. So I think he'll kind of have a little switch on. So who do we think is going to be the top Aussie ports? Who's your pick?
I'm going to say Cam.
Yep. Nice.
Yep.
I'm
Cam Smith, that is.
Yes. Pick a Cam.
Yeah, you say Cam, you get both.
Yeah, that's exactly right. 2 for 1. Well done. I'm just torn between Minwoo and Adam Scott, and I think I'm going to go with Minwoo.
Nice. Well, I'm going to go with Adam Scott.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, there you go.
There we go. We've got the sweep. That's good. The US Open isn't the only show in town this week. The LPGA is headed for Blythefield Country Club in Michigan, and the Meijer LPGA Classic for Simply Give. Sponsors watch. This is how much replacement Logue is bringing to the table. He did it for me last night in a text.
Oh, outstanding. What have we got?
Nailed it. He just said one of the great American grocery chains, Meijer.
Is that right?
There you go. Done.
Yep.
Yeah.
What, like an IGA Foodworks type thing?
Well, no, we're talking like, Kroger, Walmart, Fry's, one of like the big American groceries where you walk in there, you could spend a day in there.
Yep. Yeah. So there you go.
Okay. Fabulous.
Yeah. This was won by Leona Maguire last year. Pretty good golf course for tournament golf. Yeah, it's not in the top echelon of LPGA courses, but it's still pretty good fun to watch. Hosted the event since 2014, designed by William Langford and Theodore J. Moreau.
Oh, Langford and Moreau.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, Theo.
Yep. Arnold Palmer won a Western Open here.
Good work.
There you go. Yeah, just extra fun.
I love these events where you see the PGA Tour where they're 40, 50, 60 years. They've outgrown a lot of venues, the PGA Tour. They just can't go to a lot of these places, and it's always fabulous. Because one of the things we don't talk about enough is we always focus on the golf and the golf course and the shots and the putts and that sort of stuff. A golf tournament in these, like this LPGA event for 10 years, this will be the biggest thing happening in this town all year.
Absolutely.
It's a really important event for all the local, like we see with the Vic Open every year down at 13th Beach. It's a massive thing outside of the golf and who wins and who holds the putts and all that sort of stuff. And this is where the PGA Tour has lost a little bit in as much as there's just markets they don't go to anymore where they used to. And those places are starved of golf. And these sorts of events are really important.
Agree. Nelly Corder back in action, surely out to avenge everything that happened at Lancaster, but particularly that 10 that everyone has spoken about. You've got Lilia Vu, Celine Boutier, Hooju Kim. The farewell tour of Lexi Thompson continues. It's all those sort of names. Also out from some Lancaster revenge will be Minjee Lee. She was very, very close to a third major there. She leads an Aussie contingent of Gabby Ruffles, Hira Naveed, Karis Davidson and Robin Choi. So let's get a quick LPGA tip. Ports, I think you already had yours locked and loaded when you were telling me about grocery chains as well.
What did I say? Linnea Strom. Well, I mean, she has to go back to back now, right? Now that Meyer's her favourite grocery chain. Now, look, I think Janet Lynn gets her first win on the LPGA Tour. She's had, I believe it's 11 or 12 top threes in the last 2 years. It's quite a phenomenal number. She's won twice on the LET, still yet to get the chocolates on the LPGA Tour, but I know how much she loves Blythefield Country Club. So it's this week. It's happening.
There you go.
There you
Rod?
go. I'm going to go with Ataya Titikin, who had a good finish last week, good final round. Not as good as obviously Linnea Strong, but a good final round coming back from injury. And she's had a couple of weeks where she's played well for 2 or 3 rounds, but hasn't quite got there. I think she's just about ready to round it. I just need to say Ataya.
I'm going to go with Minjee, Minjee seems to get into these moods where she's missed out on a tournament she should have won and just is going to come out and go, remember how good I am? Just watch this.
That was a should have, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a should have. Yeah.
But I think it was
Jimmy,
there's could have.
Jimmy pointed out that you pointed out that a Western Open was held here at Blythefield, and it just actually brings me to a point. There should be a podcast based on golf courses that have been outgrown by modern technology or the PGA Tour or whatever it is. Roseville held an Australian PGA Championship. Yep. There's a course in Washington State called Manitou, which I have played many times. I think it held the 44 PGA Championship at 6,100 yards.
Yep.
Imagine putting the modern day pros on these type of courses.
Exactly.
Just speaking of yardage, I forgot to mention this, that Pinehurst will play 7,543 yards, which is 6,897 metres this week. Have a think about the longest golf course you've ever played in suburban Sydney or whatever. It's almost 7,000 metres.
Well, the Aussie and Mount Broughton have got to be 2 of the longest ones in Sydney, right? They're around the 6,600 metre mark, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. And if you've ever walked back and had a look at from the back tees at either of those golf courses, you'd understand why pros are pros and we're not, because that's just an unfeasible distance to play a golf course from. So,
well, that will just about do us for episode 67. Ports, before we let you go back to your little holiday, give us a little Next Gen Amateur Tour update. Tell the people what's it all about.
Well, lots been happening. We had our last event up on the Sunshine Coast here in Queensland at Marucci River, Haruhi Nakatani. Scoring record, a Next Gen scoring record, 18 under par for 3 rounds. That's off the back tees.
Wow.
How old are they?
Phenomenal golf.
How old are they?
She's 17.
Wow.
She's 17. The Next Gen Amateur Tour is for 25 and under. But yeah, incredible. She's off to play college golf at Florida State fairly soon. And then actually Belinda G from New South Wales, she left yesterday, courtesy of her win in our world final last year at Terry Hills. She earned 3 invitations on the LET Access Series, which Kelsey Bennett is playing. So she's off to play the next 3 weeks in Europe. Obviously some fabulous opportunities. Cade Webber from Western Sydney. He was our Order of Merit leader as of just over a month ago. So courtesy of that, he won a trip to Europe to go and play the British Amateur Championship, which is in Ireland. Northern Ireland, I think, in the next week or so. Some wonderful opportunities happening. We've got an event at Bankstown in Sydney this Thursday or Friday. If you're free, go and watch that. But yeah, lots happening. We're in 6 different countries now, constantly trying to expand that. Got a big announcement coming soon about another collaboration in Europe. So doing my best, doing all I can, just trying to create pathways that don't exist. And I think it's the hardest thing for young Aussies, right, is they're talented enough, but geography makes it difficult. Finances is obviously difficult. And that transition to professional golf, we've seen it time and time again. It's not easy. So if I can play my part in helping out, then that's the goal.
Tell me, Ewan, when you started this a couple of years ago, I'm sure you had all sorts of big dreams, but could you have envisaged where it is now? I think it's been staggering how you've grown this and how quickly and what an important pathway it's become, as you just mentioned. But you must sometimes stop and look back and go, wow. Because most of us were skeptical, as you would imagine, and you might have even been skeptical yourself at the start. These things are notoriously difficult to get off the ground. There's no money in it. There's no business case for it. There's all of those issues, and yet you've pushed through and got it to here. I can't speak highly enough of the work that you've put in and what you've done.
Yeah, much appreciated. No, I think the same. I think the first event I held was a 2-day event at Cronulla in 2019 where I grew up, and I simply did it because my dad had passed away. I wanted to honour his legacy. And, I think COVID absolutely helped me out because everyone else cancelled their events and I found a way around it, beginning with Queensland, which remained open. We had an opportunity in Sydney. Things were still open sort of internally, so expanded it into Sydney and then, it just grew from there. So I'll continue to do what I can and there's an opportunity there. Just calling a spade, there's a complete lack of events here in Australia and there's a 12 or 15 world amateur ranking events now throughout this year. That gives players extra playing opportunities, prizes, pathways to play for. So, sky's the limit, hopefully.
That is outstanding work, and thank you for joining us today and bringing some sense in Logue's place.
It's some actual knowledge. It's always good
knowledge
to see it up close,
and sense. Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's scary, really. Rod, I don't think I've ever missed you as much as I did last week, having to corral Logue and Greenie. So welcome back.
Thank you.
The place to follow all the action from the US Open is golfaustralia.com.au, where there'll be daily updates, think pieces, TV times, basically anything and everything about the US Open. It's also got our sibling podcast, The Thing About Golf. Is there a next guest that we can talk about here?
Yeah, Huggy sat down with Howard Clark, is a name that many of us will
remember.
And honestly, his interview with Mark James, I don't know.
Yeah, Mark James, outstanding.
I was way better than I expected. As I think I said last time, the only thing I'd really sort of known about Mark James was his commentary. He'd always sort of ragged the old course at St Andrews, so I'd put him in a box of what's he got to say. But it was fantastic, that interview. So I think haven't listened to the whole Howard Clark thing, but I'm expecting it to be very good as well.
Outstanding. Thank you for listening, and we will be back next week on Playing from the Tips.